Okay, welcome to Sprint 107 review. Get started. So today we're going to have, I'll go over the Sprint statistics. Carol's going to go over the community update, Harpreet for the UI, Adam on providers, Tina on automate, Joe on platform, Alberto on REST API, Chris on documentation. So we had 220 PRs merged, and this looks typical what we see week to week. And we had a rise in the number of PRs merged, which is steadily increasing. That's a good thing. And again, this is kind of typical of what we see. Enhancements took the lead with bugs right behind. And there wasn't much change on the repository health. The changes on UI Classic are typical, so there isn't much there. And over to Carol.
Hi, thank you, John. So for the community update, we have released Hammer 3. Thank you, John, for the blog post. And then the unspeakable horrors from last month in ManageIQ has been spoken by Drew on the blog as well. And then we have several updates to the documentation. Oh gosh, I can't speak today. Documentation, with much thanks to Eric and David for some of the updates and fixes. So on the event side, this actually I've mentioned last sprint. Just a bit more details for Force North in Gothenburg. We'll have a combined booth with user experience and documentation. Actually, one of the tech writers in Red Hat is joining us, and should have a help desk for docs. And also, Teresa and David would speak about component-based design, system, and development. Then those three events, Ruby events that David will be speaking at. The one in Poland, since it's a multi-day event, I just put David's presentation, which on the third day at 4 o'clock local time. So all the details you can find on the links and on this slide. Thank you, and next slide, please.
Thanks, Carol. Hello, everyone. We had total of 44 UI PRs merged across all the UI repos. Out of that, 15 were bug fixes and 10 were enhancements and so on. On the bug fixes, in the dialog runner, code was moved around to fix an issue with loading of default values on initial load, as well as when other fields are refreshed in the dialog. And an issue was fixed that affects all the trees in the product. David made a fix to make sure that when activating a node in the tree, it scrolls and makes the active node visible on the screen. A change was made to remove the trees from the Services Explorer. This was making the loading of the tree very slow when user had large amount of services. And since it was just a flat tree, data was pretty much redundant. And a fix was made on a container provider dashboard to wait for the data to be loaded before rendering the trend charts. And finally, a fix was made in Control Explorer, in the condition editor, to select a newly added node in the tree after a new condition was added. Next slide, please. And on the enhancement side, there was an enhancement made to the custom buttons reordering code within a button group. And for the rest of the enhancements, I have screenshots to go over, so I'll skip over this slide. Next slide, please. On the OpenStack provider form, there was 2 new fields added to allow adding of fallback hostname 1 and 2. As you can see, the 2 new text boxes were added on the screen. Next slide, please. On the catalog add form, debounce promise library was introduced that helps with async calls in React. As you can see in the screenshot, as user is typing or entering a data in the name field, error messages are being displayed asynchronously. Previously, user had to press add button to see the validation messages. Next slide, please. And on the V2V side, an enhancement was made to allow user to select type of logs to download. A wrapper log was added to the list. Previously, only migration log was available to be downloaded. Next slide, please. An information pop-up was added to show broken infra mapping for missing clusters, data stores, or networks. As you can see, if you click on the X icon, it shows more information. Next slide, please. New screen was added to allow setting of options for migration throttling. Two drop-downs were added to allow setting of maximum concurrent migration for conversion hosts and providers. And the next slide. Lastly, on the conversions host list view, polling of tasks was added. As you can see on the screenshot on the left, it's showing the spinning circle while it's checking for the status of the task. And then on the right, you can see it shows the status when you click on the I icon. And that's all I have for the UI. On to Adam. Is Adam on?
You there, Adam? All right, then I'll try and wing it for him. So this is just the typical, what we see for providers. Number of PRs merged on the providers. Let's see, he's got a couple PRs here merged that I know nothing about, but you can certainly click on that link and follow through on read about them. And over to Tina. Sorry, Adam.
And thanks, John. Good morning. We had 14 PRs merge this sprint. For V2V, Fabian removed the power off check to resolve a migration issue and removed the set description state, which was no longer needed. Drew resolved the dynamic dialog date picker issue, and Eric resolved an issue where the dialog options weren't being displayed properly for service requests in a multi-region environment. Next slide, please. Patrick resolved an issue where copying a playbook method resulted in the loss of playbook-specific information. Patrick fixed an automate data store import issue, which prevented namespaces from being created. Lucy fixed an issue where the user was not always getting set properly when executing an automate method. Provider-specific provisioning executed as part of a service is supposed to be queued to the provider zone. Lucy changed service orchestration provisioning to queue the work to the proper zone. And finally, Drew removed OpenShift deployment from several of our repos. That's it for automate. Next slide, over to Joe.
Thank you, Tina. The sprint saw 26 PRs merged in the platform space, the highlights of which are Nixie did a lot of work to move us to Postgres 10, including bumping the appliance console gem version. And Yuri continued the effort to move us to Rails 5.1 by using throw abort to capture errors in the model. Libor did some refactoring report generation as the initial part of a bug fix still in progress. Next slide, please. For bug fixes, Jerry fixed a bug where neither NFS nor Samba database backups could be scheduled. Nixie fixed a bug that was breaking production scripts that parse the output of Rails runner by not printing the release code name when in production. Yuri fixed an issue where tasks failed to be marked as finished when queuing a chargeback report to the API. And Keenan made a fix to improve performance when displaying service totals. Libor fixed a bug that prevented network managers, VMs, and templates from being listed under certain conditions. And for enhancements, Yuri added the ability to destroy all user dashboards. And Yuri also added the ability to clone dashboards by implementing the MIQ widget set class method copy dashboard. And that's it for the platform. On to the REST API.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, for this sprint, Milan made an enhancement for adding the ability to add mapping items to transformation mappings. That's introduced via a new action, add mapping item to the transformation mapping resources. And again, that's needed for the V2V projects. And here's an example of the post for that action. And that's it for the API. Next.
Hi, for documentation in this sprint, we had a total of 17 PRs merged, 15 of which addressed enhancements, and 2 were for bugs. Some of those highlights are we've removed deprecated topics on discovering cloud providers. We've added a note about the customized tab requirement during VM provisioning. There is a new section on the Postgres database configuration in the deployment planning guide, and additionally a new section on renaming database appliances in the high availability guide. And beginning with the next sprint, you will be covered by Suyog, who is now down in Raleigh and taking lead on CloudForm's documentation.
Okay, that's the end of Sprint 107, and next 2 weeks we'll see everybody for Sprint 108. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Old.